This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back to another top 10. Like many of you, I've really enjoyed Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and I wanted to cover a few of the cards that I felt stood out the most. As with all lists, especially top 10s, these decisions are based around my meta, my playstyle, and all the other factors that make me me, so just because your card isn't on the list doesn't mean I don't like it. Let's start off with some honorable mentions, first up being Lizard Blades. This card is super sweet, and I love seeing these equipment/creature cards that come in and can either be helpful to your creatures on the board or a creature of themselves. Another one of the cards that I really want to highlight is Explosive Singularity, because who doesn't love a Spirit Bomb? This card is one of those big flashy spell effects that you love to see in EDH. And while 10 damage for 10 mana doesn't seem that great, in a deck like Krenko where you're making so many tokens, you can often cast this for red and red, which isn't that bad. My last honorable mention goes to the Shrines and the Legendary Shrine card. Although Shrines aren't actually a creature type, so it can be quite confusing when you think about it, these are pretty great iterations. The green one in particular is very strong at only 2, and only having to pay 1 colorless mana at the end of a turn seems like just great value. So with that out of the way, let's look at my top 10, starting with number 10. The first card I want to talk about is Goro Goro, Disciple of Rusei. Obviously this is a goblin, so you know it has to be on my list, and it's cheap enough that it's easily slotted into any goblin deck without having to change the curve too much. For only 1 red, it's a haste enabler, which is fantastic, and it has a secondary ability which does require you to have a modified creature, which can make a 5/5 Dragon Spirit token with flying if you do, or at the very least, it just has the option of being there if you need it. Number 9. Scrap Welder. Again, basically this is a goblin, and I'm likely to put it into my Duretti deck. It's basically worse than a Goblin Welder or a Goblin Engineer, but redundancy isn't a bad thing to have in a deck. Its activated ability is kind of a melding of the Goblin Welder and a Goblin Engineer, because it cares for the cost of what you sacrifice in order to bring back something that costs less from the graveyard to the battlefield. The upside is, it does gain haste, so if you bring back something like a mere Battle Sphere, you can swing and deal some damage if you need. Number 8. The Legendary Land Cycle. Obviously Boseiju is probably the number 1 card that people are chasing in this set, but I think all 5 of them are worth running in a deck that runs these colors. Basically they're a spell effect on a land, and they come into play untapped, which is incredibly powerful. They're legendary, which really isn't a problem for EDH and is more an issue for a 60 card format, but as powerful as these cards are, I'm not as excited as some of the other cards on this list, because it's basically just a land that does a spell effect, and you're going to want to cut a basic or something that comes in tapped for it, which is okay I guess. Number 7. Satoru Umezawa. This card is the meme of the set. It's another great addition to the Dimir Ninja cycle of commanders, and I could see this easily slotting into a Yuriko deck, or Yuriko going into this deck. I'm sure a lot of people are going to abuse the 4-costing ninjutsu ability, but the trigger whenever you ninjutsu once per turn to look at your top 3 and keep one of them isn't something to slouch at. Number 6. Lion Sash. A really great addition to any mono white deck or any equipment based deck with white in it. This card is so well costed, it can actually be found with Stoneforge Mystic, which is pretty special considering it's a creature as well. Obviously this card has a preference to what you exile, since if you target and exile a permanent card, you get to put a +1/+1 counter onto the Lion Sash. This means that it gets bigger as a creature, but it has that added benefit of being able to get the equipped creature +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on the Lion Sash. This means if the creature equipped with it dies, at least you still have a pretty big beater, assuming you've been using it. Number 5. Containment Construct. Again, this is probably a heavy bias because of the decks that I play, but I think this card is ridiculous. I know a lot of people playing CDH have valued it very highly, but this could see a lot of play in non-CDH decks as well and get you great amounts of value. For me, this is easily going to slot into Duretti since I discard so many cards anyway, and having the option of being able to discard cards, then draw that many, and then play the cards that I discarded is just value. I'm not actually a judge, I'm not entirely sure if this is exactly how the card works, but I'm pretty sure if you exile a land to this ability, you can still play it for that turn, right? Number 4. Light-Paws, Emperor's Voice. I think this list might have the most white cards from a set I've ever included on a list before, and that's kinda great to see. Light-Paws, Emperor's Voice makes me think back to Earl when I first started playing EDH. Earl was a terrifying commander with auras and being able to deal crazy amounts of commander damage to people and not being able to be interacted with. While Light-Paws doesn't actually have built-in hexproof, the fact that you're able to tutor for auras and put them directly on the field when you cast them is insane. In a Voltron-based deck, if you cast something like Eldrazi Conscription, you basically can find any other aura you want and slap it onto this, which seems fantastic. Of course, there's the built-in restriction where you can't find the same named aura, but again, we're playing EDH, that doesn't matter. Number 3. The March spells with the X cost abilities. Now there's 5 of these, and each of them is kind of interesting in and of itself. Obviously at first glance, the green one seems the weakest, but surprise surprise, within a day of it being released, people found ways to break it. You gotta love EDH. The combo works by having a couple lands in hand, Spy Kit, a Mana Dork, and the March. And what you do is play a land, cast the Mana Dork on turn 1, on turn 2, play a land, cast Spy Kit, and then on turn 3, play a land, equip the kit to the Mana Dork, and then use the rest of the mana to cast the March where X is 1 and target the Mana Dork. This allows you to target the creature with converted mana cost of 1 or less, and then you search your library for a creature card with the same name as that creature, which, at this point because of the Spy Kit, is everything, and get to put it onto the battlefield tapped. This means you can find any large creature you want or any value creature you want, with the only restriction being that it can't be a legendary creature. In terms of how powerful the cards are, I think it's the blue one, the red one, the white one, the green one, and then the black one, going from best to worst. Number 2, Mirror Box. We've already seen powerful like effects with Sakashima, basically allowing you to copy your commander and how much value that can bring to a deck, so having an artifact that applies this to every legendary you own is fantastic. It has the added benefit of pumping the legendary creatures you control by +1/+1 just for being out, not to mention that if you make multiple copies of it, it gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. This can lead to a lot of fun situations, and I'm really excited to test this out. Obviously it's probably easier to do it in something like blue, but with Populate and things like my Trustani deck, I could see making this work outside of those colors. And last but not least, number 1, Isshin 2 Heavens as 1. First off, let's look at that sweet, sweet art. My goodness, the art is gorgeous with some sweet samurai armor, not to mention he's dual-wielding blazing laser swords. Check, 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 and check. I think Ryan Pankos did a fantastic job exemplifying this card, and the alternate art is super sweet as well. Without nerding out about it too much, this card is super well costed for only a red, a white, and a black, getting you a 3/4. It'd be super sweet if he had haste, but considering his ability doesn't care if he attacks to trigger the extra attack clause, it's largely irrelevant. There are a ton of on-attack triggers like Tyrant's Familiar, Sun Titan, Inferno Titan, Grave Titan. The list goes on and on for how much double value you can get with this. Basically this is a combat panharmonicon, and I am for it. Well gang, that is my top 10 cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I'm sure there's a bunch that I've missed since it feels like we're getting so many new cards, but it's exciting to see things getting shaken up by adding new additions to old decks, or by seeing new commanders hitting the field. As always, if there's a card that you've particularly enjoyed playing from Neon Dynasty, please let me know about it in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you back for the next set hopefully. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.